Yet another closely fought battle in round one of Super Rugby Pacific. This time the Brumbies just getting away from the Drua in Fiji in a one-score game. I did tip the Drua for this game. The Brumbies had left a few of the big guns at home. I thought that the Brumbies were on a bit of a downswing this year. They didn't make many pickups. I thought their maul was sort of weakening over the last year. Very quickly though, they proved me wrong. Scored a maul try within about 5 minutes. And with the Drua, they do give away a lot of penalties. They're the most penalized team last year. That makes them really vulnerable to these teams who really like to maul. And they really went from bad to worse for the Drua in the first half. It was probably the most ill-disciplined half I've ever seen from one side in a game of rugby in years. It was so frantic. There were kick errors, there were knock-ons. 2 cards came for the Drua, one for a lifting tackle, another for a deliberate knockdown. They were down to 13 men at one point. They were getting carved up from the Brumbies. They were just flying through them. The only thing that really stopped the Brumbies from just running away with the game in that half is that their own handling was a bit dodgy. It was tough conditions there. It was a bit slippery in Fiji. It was humid, it was sweaty, it was tough conditions. And we can see with the game stats here, turnovers lost by the Brumbies very high, up at around 20. Miraculously though, despite everything, despite the disastrous discipline, the Drua, they did go into the sheds ahead at half time. I couldn't quite believe it. In the second half though, the Brumbies, they obviously talked about it in the sheds. They came out in the second half, they calmed things down. They didn't allow themselves to play into that frantic pace that the Drua were forcing, the chaotic nature of things, and that helped their handling a little bit, allowed them to get a bit more control. They did look good at the start of that second half, but the Drua, whenever they got the ball, they still looked very threatening. And then the handling errors came back for the Brumbies. They handed the Drua a try on the platter with some sloppy handling deep in their own half. They didn't panic though. They stayed patient. They defended well. They waited for the errors to come. They took opportunities to kick for the corner and push over the try line, going for those maul tries. They clawed their way back in front. That was thanks in no small part to Luke Reimer. He picked up a double after missing probably half of the game. I'm not sure it was wrong. He was injured somehow, but in a way where he was still able to come back later. And then late in the game, the Drua, they weren't able to get their hands back on the ball again, and the Brumbies were able to close it out in tough conditions in Fiji in front of a hostile crowd. Ultimately, this game, it really was about composure. The Drua, they make the game so chaotic. They play at this really frantic pace. They throw the ball around, and that it hurts them about as much as it helps them, but it also invites the other team to match them. And then in that chaos, that's what gives the Drua a chance to sort of rise to the top. It's not a consistent way to play. It's not a safe way to play. It doesn't always work for them, but it gives them that chance. So really, playing against them, it really is just about being composed, holding on to the ball, just slowing the game down, keeping things calm. And they will make mistakes. They will feed you the penalties, and you can just play off the back of that. It took the Brumbies a little while to work it out in this game, but they did get there in the end, and they deserved the win. It's a bit of the same old story for the Drua. Unfortunately, they really need to get on top of their discipline and learn how to play composed. They just need to dial it back like 10-15% just to give them that little bit of control. If they can do that, they'll be lethal. They'll be a force to be reckoned with. But both teams, there were lots of strong individual performances in this game. I mentioned Luke Reimer before. He was a standout. He had a huge impact for a guy who wasn't even on the park the whole time. Akanaveri was great. Then Drua captain and hooker, he was busy around the park. You can see on the turnovers here, Luke Reimer dominating as well with 4 in this game. Ollie Sapsford was the beneficiary of some good team play, coming away with tries and line breaks. Bit of a quiet game for some players. Corey Toole, not that present. Yosefi Mafi, not the big game that I thought that he might have. Did go off injured at some point. Anyway, still a very entertaining game to watch. We continue the streak in Super Rugby Pacific round 1, just having great game after great game, very closely contested matches. We got the Blues and the Chiefs coming up next, so check my channel if you want to see my thoughts on that one.